This is Geek Gab with your hosts, Brian, John, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. That's right, Geek Gab for Sunday, May 8th, 2016. This is episode 52. We have done 52 of these things. Can you believe that, John?
Holy cow, every time you announce the episode number, ever since we got to 50, it's blown my mind. And it's 2016. This is something else.
If you listen to one episode of Geek Gab per week, if you downloaded them all, it would take you a full year. It would take you from the time the Earth left this position and orbit around the sun and returned to it again to exhaust all of Geek Gab. I'm speechless.
And you would be an immeasurably better person for the endeavor, I will have to say.
We should get some scientific studies done to verify that listening to Geek Gab improves you as a person.
I know a Ukrainian master's candidate who will do any research you want for a pack of cigarettes. So, sorry, a carton.
The problem is that's a difficult proposition to test because our audience is so incredible, so amazing already that it's difficult to measure an increase in how awesome they already are, over how awesome they already are.
I thought they came up with the Fonzie scale as a unit of awesomeness. And I think we would easily read over 9,000 megafonzies.
Is that a like the decibel scale? I suspect that's actually an exponential scale. That as you go up higher and higher in the awesomeness factor, you have to have a bigger increase to move up the same number.
Kind of like warp factors.
So now I've got a question. We have a movie that is today the subject of our show. And I know that I personally have actually seen said movie, which shall remain nameless for but a moment, and I want to know if my highly educated and highly intelligent co-hosts have also actually seen the movie.
Yes.
We've done it. It took 52 episodes, but we've finally all seen the same movie that we're talking about on the show.
In time to actually talk about it on the show.
And in time, right after opening weekend or during opening weekend.
Yeah, because it just opened on Friday.
We are relevant.
The Gab has never been more topical, guys. We've done it.
So, Captain America Civil War, or as I called it in the run-up to the show, the Battle of the B-List Avengers. Now, I got some flack for that on Twitter. Somebody was upset that I called it the Battle of the B-List Avengers because I believe they felt I was mocking the movie, that I was suggesting that it wasn't a very good movie. I was not suggesting that. I was, however, making fun of it just because making fun of things is what I do, because it's fun and it's funny. So, the Battle of the B-List Avengers does not mean I hated the movie. It does not mean that I think that the movie itself should be the subject of scorn and derision. However, I would like to defend the title of the show, because in my mind there are three A-list Avengers. That is the people who actually get their own solo movies. Captain America, Iron Man, Thor. Those are the A-listers. Everybody else is B-list.
What about Hulk?
So, no, Hulk doesn't count. Edward Norton got canned, and they replaced him. So Hulk is no longer an A-list Avenger.
Okay, I agree. He got demoted. Fair enough.
Now, Black Widow may be getting her own solo movie. That was just announced on Friday or Saturday. If so, she will move up in the ranks to be an actual A-list Avenger, but as of right now, it is the Battle of the B-list Avengers. And because Thor isn't a movie, there's only two A-listers and a bunch of B-listers. Sorry, folks, That's just the way it is. So let me ask this question real quick. Were you guys bitterly, ruefully disappointed with the quality of the movie?
Oh, no. Agrees away from that sentiment, sir.
You sort of set me up there. How could I not? I mean, ugh. No, I liked it a lot. I didn't have let me put it this way. I didn't have Avengers Age of Ultron expectations, and it pleased me just fine. I enjoyed it.
This movie instantly jumped into the top 5 list of Marvel movies. It might have jumped into the top 3 or 2 Marvel movies. I'll have to think about it and watch it again. Believe it or not, as great, this is how it ended up on my scale. As great as Captain America Winter Soldier was, and it was great, I think Civil War was better.
Agreed.
Why?
It entertained me more. It surprised me because this is the biggest thing I liked about the movie. Captain America Civil War, the comic series from 2006, was, I believe, Brian Michael Bendis getting some political things off his chest about the war on terror and the invasion of Iraq and Halliburton and all these other things. It was an excuse for political rants, and there is precisely one debate scene in the movie that's very short, but after that, it's not about the respective positions of Captain America and Iron Man. It is, in point of fact, about an actual story and plot and characters interacting with each other and making decisions on what they're going to do based on their characteristics and the situations they're in. It's astounding because it's not a political polemic. They neither directly reference nor obliquely reference George Bush and the War on Terror. And the absence of being lectured was great, but also the absence of further debate scenes about the issues at hand in the movie. If they had left off sucker punches about Bush, that would have been okay. Only okay if they had continued to debate the issues at hand. Should we be controlled by the UN? Should we not be controlled by the UN? Then going back and forth about it with occasional, fistfights in between. Fortunately, that is absolutely not what they did. You get one scene of debate, and the movie moves on with not just action, but cool action that I haven't seen before. I kept on finding myself again and again and again doing, ooh, that's neat. That was neat what they did right there in this movie. Just one single example. Bucky is trying to escape from some cops, and in order to escape them, he grabs an iron railing and uses it almost as a rappel rope he pulls it free and drops down to the next floor. And it just looked cool. They did an awesome job on the action in this movie. The action in this movie is top-notch.
Well, that's what I liked about it. I liked that it wasn't, slow, thoughtful drama about all the characters and their feelings and everything. They said, you know what? We know what you're here for. You're here to see Captain America and Iron Man and their teams just go at it. You want to see these awesome action sequences. We're going to set it up, and we're going to have fun with it. We're not going to say anything meaningful here. We're just going to have the characters go.
Exactly. Getting back to your earlier question, John, I really, really love Winter Soldier, the movie. Until now, it was my favorite Marvel movie, in fact. But it is, admittedly, Chris has admitted this, the genre it's in it's a 70s style espionage movie, like All the President's Men or 8 Days of the Condor or something like that. And it really works. It's that with some like classic 80s, 90s action and superhero elements thrown in. Like Daddy Warpig said, Civil War is a superhero movie. It's just a bare-knuckle superhero brawl with some thoughtful elements and plenty of character motivation and pathos. So yeah, it does exceed its predecessor.
Well, I like the point that Daddy Warpig made that I hadn't I wasn't cognizant of. I mean, of course, I noticed it when I watched it, but it was the characters were just more or less, acting true to their characters. You could see how they made their decisions for the most part. Um, the only it is weird to me that some of them would so quickly decide that it would be okay to have UN oversight over them. I thought more superheroes had more pride than that, but yeah, but I did like that. I like that nothing ever made me stop and go, huh? Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and that gets back to what Daddy Warpig said, which was I kind of saw the Civil War comics as often stooping to a thinly veiled allegory for gun control, and definitely coming down on the side of gun grabbing. This movie takes pains to point out that no, that's not the allegory. This is, should we let people walk around unsupervised with suitcase nukes? That's a totally different question.
Yeah, violating the sovereignty of foreign countries at will.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is that by changing it to that, they're basically going over the same stuff that X-Men has been doing for 50 years or whatever. Which is even my wife who saw the movie with me sort of mentioned the same thing. She's like, yeah, that's what X-Men does, right? They're just but they're too dangerous. They need to be controlled.
And Watchmen. I mean, it's just because they're using a recurring trope doesn't mean they didn't bring something original to the table. And second of all, even though they're in different continuities, because Fox has the X-Men license and Marvel and Disney have the Avengers, I like that they finally kind of independently shorn up what I thought was always a big plot hole in Marvel continuity in general, which is the mutants are treated as a dangerous menace by some people, but we love the Avengers. Well, that's really arbitrary, guys. So it's about time the Avengers got the same treatment that the mutants have had.
See, I really despise Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show. I despise it. And someone asked me on Twitter, they said, why do you despise Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? My answer to that is, because I've watched the show. I have earned the right to despise it. And this last season shows that perfectly, because what they have is a long sequence of the Inhumans being hated for actually good reasons. They set that up pretty well. But they have cardboard-thin characters that don't act like real human beings or like they have real motivations. They're not very interesting, and they spend all their time, the last half of the season, being patronizing and lecturing about real-world political issues. It's like, yes, I come to a superhero TV show to hear you tell me how bad oil companies are. Compare Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Civil War, and you can see instantly that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is absolutely mediocre. And the claim that they have a small budget doesn't cut it, because Daredevil has a tiny budget, is a minuscule budget compared to an Avengers movie, and yet the Daredevil show on Netflix is amazing. It is incredible.
It all comes down to the writers, in my opinion. I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I only sat through part of the first season, it was that bad. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Is just... even if you're a big Joss Whedon fan or a Mutant Enemy fan, you sit down and you're like, nah, this isn't the same writers that brought us, my favorite moments on Buffy or whatever. And in the same way, actually, I want to bring this back to Civil War, because Civil War being, as you said at the top of the show, like the B-list Avengers, or Avengers 2.5, I've heard someone call it, right? They're the big showpiece battle in the second act, where both teams are fighting each other at an airport. It was chock full of fun action sequences and funny quips and things, and not just from Spider-Man, who's an awesome cameo. We should talk about that, but it had all these funny quips and things that made it feel like a scene from the Avengers. but the the material wasn't quite the same. It wasn't quite as funny. It didn't feel like that first time when we all saw the Avengers and they were all shooting, Joss Whedon-esque quips back and forth, and it was a lot of fun. It was just like, yeah, that was a good scene. That reminds me of all those Avengers fights.
Don't you think, though, if they had the Whedon-style dialogue, it would have been tonally dissonant with this movie? Because the tone of this movie is a lot darker than either of the Avengers films.
I agree 100%. I think Captain America should probably never be written by Whedon, but they had an Avengers fight scene smack dab. I think it was directly in the middle of the movie, of the running time. Like right in the middle of the movie is an Avengers fight scene, surrounded by this cool Captain America movie.
Yeah, and Whedon, to be fair, has admitted he doesn't understand Captain America, and he finds him the most difficult character to write, which comes through, and that's why, honestly, I think the Cap franchise has eclipsed what was supposed to be the core franchise of Marvel. It's the Captain America series is now better than Avengers.
I think that Whedon had, I don't know if he wrote this line or somebody else wrote this line, but I think the single most perfect line for Captain America in a Whedon movie was in the first Avengers when he says, there's only one God, ma'am, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Yeah, and that's what everyone references, and it is a great line, but it took all of Joss Whedon's discipline and writing powers, and he was able to deliver that one great Captain America scene, and it's really been crickets from him ever since. Like, he just doesn't know how to handle the character right. He tries. That's okay. He's still a great writer, but the Russo brothers have proven they know how to handle not only Cap, but all of the Marvel characters.
Well, and this movie is the one that made me most excited for Infinity War, because the Russo brothers are doing Infinity War 1 and 2.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, they're writing it, they're directing it.
Oh, thank God.
I've got to mention this, because I watch honest trailers, which I think is great. I think it's hilarious and funny, and on their channel they did an honest trailer for Captain America Winter Soldier. And then the Russo brothers got in contact with them and wanted to respond to some of the points they made. So there's a Russo brothers react to the honest trailer. So the two guys who made the honest trailer, who wrote it, are sitting across the table from the two Russo brothers while the Russo brothers watch their video and reply to it. This is the thing they said, though, that explains to me the most of why Captain America Winter Soldier was as great as it was. They said their motto in making that movie was they didn't want any plot point to show up on those damn honest trailers videos. And it became a motto on the production, where they were always saying this can't end up on honest trailers. We can't have this end up on honest trailers. And every time they ran into a plot point that didn't make sense, every time they needed to figure out the sequence of events, they would sit down in a room and talk it out until it made sense, so that nothing in their movie would show up on honest trailers. And you know that because when you get to honest trailers, they have a couple of small things, and then they say, but this is honest trailers, this is a good movie, and but we're a humor series, so we're going to nitpick. And then they proceed to do very, very small nitpicky things. They just couldn't fill up an entire 5 minutes with things to criticize, because the Russo brothers had did such a good job at honest trailer proofing their movie, and that's why it came out to be such a great movie. They thought through the plot, they thought through character motivations, they thought through pretty much everything they could, other than these couple of nitpicky things, to make it as smooth as possible. I think they did the same thing on this movie, on Civil War, and I'm hoping they do the same thing on the two Infinity War movies.
That's great. Imagine they used to actually hire people to work on continuity and write, they used to have a guy for that. Now they have to all do it in a room in a committee, because otherwise the internet's going to roast them.
Well, and it plays into my theory that the biggest problem with Hollywood is laziness. The biggest problem with Hollywood is they just don't work things out like that anymore. They don't sit down and make sure everything fits together and it all makes sense while they're making the movie. Their motto is, well, shoot it now, we'll fix it in post. Some things you just can't fix in post, and some things you just can't fix with reshoots. Reshoots didn't help Fantastic Four or Fan Four Stick or whatever you want to call it. They're not going to help the Ghostbusters movie that's coming out, and if you don't get it right while you're shooting it, if you don't get it right while you're making it, fixing it in post is just not an option.
So I wanna transition and talk about the other thing besides the writing that makes these Captain America movies so good, and we've known it ever since Iron Man 1, which is casting.
Oh yeah.
The people playing these characters are perfect. Chris Evans is Captain America.
Yep.
If you saw him on the street, you might even forget his name. You don't even hey, it's Cap.
And the casting is perfect for the Captain America and all the other characters in these movies, and in all the Marvel movies except for the Hulk, casting is impeccable. Casting is terrible in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Other than Phil Coulson, who was pre-cast, I don't think they got a single character writer or a single actor to play those characters right. And casting is impeccable in the Daredevil Netflix series, so it really stands out.
Yeah. The casting in Robert Downey Jr. is the obvious one. Chris Evans is really, really good, especially for a character that is. Once again, my wife and I were talking about this. How Captain America is actually a complex character. You'd think that he could just be cheeseball patriotic, but no, he's actually really complex, which even that Joss Whedon quote sort of tells you.
Absolutely.
I think that, and you have to realize that they had two new characters they introduced in this movie. And so if either of those and both of them have fairly large roles or fairly integral roles in the plot, and if they had gotten those two characters wrong, it would have wrecked this movie to a large extent. And those are the Prince of Wakanda, otherwise known as Black Panther, and of course Peter Parker Spider-Man. And I think they nailed the casting on both of those perfectly.
Oh, totally. We got the best big screen Peter Parker, which I did not see coming.
It didn't. That blew me away. That was the great introduction.
Tom Holland is perfect.
And you know what? I think they did the smart thing by introducing him in a scene with Tony Stark. Because if you've seen all of his other interactions, Robert Downey Jr. works really well with kids and younger actors. And the way they played off of each other was brilliant.
That scene was just hilarious, top to bottom. Can we talk spoilers here? I mean, we've got far enough in the show. We only have 8 minutes left, so we'll open the floor for spoilers. So from here on out, all three of us like the movie. Go see it. But we're going to talk about spoilers. The scene in Spider-Man's apartment, he's desperately trying to pretend he's not Spider-Man. But Tony Stark knows that he is Spider-Man and is just kind of playing with him. And it's brilliant.
And it finally explains how a superhero is able to go from like a red and blue sweatsuit to a slick Hollywood caliber costume, right? Because in everywhere from both original Spider-Man series to Deadpool, yeah, they have a nod to that. Or at first, okay, he's in a really cheap costume, but then they don't show how he gets the slick costume. Well, now we have an explanation, which is Stark Industries made it. Okay.
Problem solved.
Has Tony Stark become Edna Mode now? Is he the fashion designer to the superheroes?
No cape.
Looking to you, Vision.
Yeah. Other great interactions. I thought the scenes between Vision and the Scarlet Witch were well done. They were subtly layered throughout the movie. Um,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was really interesting what they did with Vision, because there's a lot of Lieutenant Commander data going on where Vision has all these like mixed emotions. I don't even want to call them emotions. We all know that he's artificial, right? But he's got all these mixed emotions regarding the Scarlet Witch, and it just made those scenes really good. The actor knocked it out of the park on that, I think.
Oh yeah. Because you are aware, John, that in the comics she becomes Mrs. the Vision, right?
I did not know that.
Sorry.
they had a whole series called Vision and the Scarlet Witch that would last it for a long time.
You see that you know that I don't read comic books, right?
Oh okay.
Um, and Elizabeth Olsen, who plays Scarlet Witch, did a spectacular job through the movie. She doesn't. The movie revolves around the Sokovia Accords, which is the UN saying, "Hey, these heroes have gone around the globe, basically trashing major cities many, many times. 12 times, I think they show on a map. And we have to kind of rein them in. We can't just allow this to keep on going on." Well, one of the cities they trash was Sokovia, which is her hometown. And every time Sokovia comes up, you can see how conflicted she is about that, how it tears at her. And the funny thing is she doesn't end up on Iron Man's side. She doesn't end up on the side of controlling the superheroes, despite what was done to her hometown.
Yeah, that's another interesting point, which was I've heard a lot of people remark, and I feel this way too, that the roster breakdown between Team Cap and Team Iron Man, right? That there are characters on each side that you wouldn't expect to have picked those sides before you saw the movie. But watching the movie, the way that the Russo brothers explain characters' motivations, which I give them an A+ for. I mean, if you want to know how to lay out a character's motivation efficiently, watch this movie. But it makes total sense why everyone chose the side that he did.
Yeah, I mean, and there are some that are obvious that you can completely see why they'd end up like that. Like Ant-Man isn't an Avenger. He's kind of a lawbreaker anyway. He's a rebel.
Yeah.
And so you could see why. Okay, he would go with Team Cap because he doesn't want to, if he ever joins the Avengers, he doesn't want to end up being controlled by the UN. You could see that. It totally made sense.
Oh yeah, that's why there's that exchange in the movie where Steve Rogers tells him, "Now, if you join us, you'll be breaking the law," and he's like, "Okay." What else to do?
I tell you what. After seeing that, I had not seen Ant-Man. I had so much fun. Ant-Man played a pretty big role, a huge role in the big fight scene. He played a massive role in the fight scene on the airport. It was gigantic. The role that he played.
Okay, you win the episode.
we went we had to we went and rented Ant-Man just so that we could go back and watch that, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It wasn't great, but it was a good movie and I really enjoyed it. Paul Rudd is a superhero, guys.
Yeah, I liked Ant-Man. I mean, I will admit, Ant-Man is not as good as Winter Soldier. Ant-Man is not as good as Civil War, but it was a good and enjoyable superhero movie. It's not a bad superhero movie or a superhero movie that has a lot of great aspects, but is because of the script and the story, it turns out to be really leave a bad taste in your mouth, which is Batman versus Superman did. We're running out of time here. We got about 3 minutes left, so I want to do this very, very quickly. Batman versus Superman is how to do a hero versus hero fight badly. You have inconsistent characterization. You have no clear motivations. You have no reason for them to fight. You have no reason for them to stop fighting. Badly. Done badly. Civil War is how you do hero-on-hero combats impeccably, beautifully well. Clear motivations, clear characterization, clear reason to be fighting, clear reason when they stop fighting, clear reason when they start fighting again later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a nitpicky level, in that fight scene, everybody has their own special shtick and their powers, and they just get to recombine them in fun ways to make fun scenes. And they're just, hey, let's combine these three characters and have a fun thing happen. Okay, it was so much fun.
The fight scene in the airport was just amazing. I will say that fight scene in the airport is kind of the tentpole of the movie, because that is the one scene you went to see the movie for. That's the scene that absolutely had to be in the movie because the audience is expecting it and the audience wants it. And you've seen little pieces of it here and there in all the trailers, but you just can't imagine how well they put the whole thing together until you actually watch the movie. That's where the two teams, 6 members apiece, I think, go head-to-head in this massive combat in the airport. You just can't imagine how cool it actually is until you watch the scene. That one scene, which I knew was coming, and I knew some of the things that were going to happen into it, and I knew who was involved, just turned out to blow my expectations away with the coolness of the action, the humor, the interactions, just the chase between Spider-Man, Falcon, and Bucky would have blown my expectations, but the whole scene was like that.
You're here.
All right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to announce we're out of time. I was going to see if we had any last-minute comments.
Well, we do. Okay, listen up, listeners. You asked for it, you demanded it, so we at Geek Gab have gone to bat for you and have obtained your heart's desire. So I'm here to announce that in 2 weeks, on May the 20th, that's Friday, Razor Fist, that's right, the Rageaholic himself, will be joining us on the Gab. You're welcome.
Yep. He has agreed to come on our show, so spread the word. Friday, May 20th, he'll be coming on the show.
I believe we agreed that's 5:30 Pacific.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
I don't have it in my calendar yet, so I don't know if it's 5:30 Pacific.
Well, it better, because I work until 5 Pacific on that Friday. So.
Okay. 5:30 sounds great to me. I've got plenty of time. Okay. Any last words, John?
I'm good. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, this is Geek Gab, and I want to remind you of some things, because now that we are an actual syndicated podcast on SoundCloud, these things have to be we have to remind you of them. First off, you can subscribe to a podcast feed of this show. A couple of hours after the show gets over, it goes live. The feed URL is in the comments to this show on YouTube, or if you want to go to SoundCloud/GeekGab, SoundCloud.com/GeekGab, there will be an option to sign up for the RSS feed. You just copy and paste that URL into iTunes, and then it will add Geek Gab to your podcasts, and you can download it on any Apple device, or, and this is the benefit of using SoundCloud, any Android or Windows Phone device, you can use that same URL to subscribe to this podcast and download episodes. The URL, again, is in the show description, or you can go to SoundCloud/GeekGab. As well, you can follow all of us on Twitter, and our Twitter accounts or Facebook accounts for me are in the description of the show. Brian Niemeyer has a website. It's brianniemeyer.com. You can read all of his common blog posts, including one about Captain America, Civil War, and, of course, DaddyWarpig.com, the House of Geekery, to see my almost daily dose of geek culture. Thanks for tuning in, folks. This is, or has been, Geek Gab for Sunday, May 8th, 2016, episode 52. We're signing off for today, but we will be back.